This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Logan Sargeant finished his home Grand Prix, the Miami Grand Prix, in the wall. This isn't the first time, but it could be the last. I think I have given Logan more patience and benefit of doubt than most, acknowledging his good underlying pace and just waiting for that time where he pieces it all together. Well, I'm still waiting, and to be honest, now feels like the first time that I would say that if I was in charge at Williams, I would probably be relinquishing Logan of his role. It pains me to say, but I think I've given up on Logan Sargeant. Has James Vowles too, though? And will they swap him out mid-season? Could Antonelli really debut for them at just 17 years of age? And what about all their other options? Well, my name's Tommo. Let's talk about it. At the end of the day, Kevin Magnussen was given the penalty for his and Logan's contact in Miami that resulted in the American's race being cut short. The Dane was deemed mostly at fault. I'm not sure I agree. For me, it was naive of Logan to not expect K-Mag to be there to go for that gap around the outside when Logan had to take a shallower entry into turn 1 to defend against Magnussen. You're always going to get a cut back there, and a driver like Magnussen's going to go for the gap, a gap that was there, and look, he was significantly alongside. Can you deem it wholly alongside? It's very grey area, it's very much on the cusp, hence why I wouldn't have given K-Mag a penalty, but I wouldn't have given Sargeant one either. I would have said racing incident for me. That is now 8 times he hasn't finished a race in his Formula 1 career, not including Australia, by the way, the race where he had to withdraw from because of Alex, which makes 8 in 27 Grand Prix for Logan Sargeant. That's almost a 1/3 DNF rate. Australia 23, he punted De Vries on the restart. Canada 23, he had an oil leak. Hungary 23, he dropped it on his own. Zandvoort 23, he had a hydraulics failure and shunted because of it. Japan 23, he harpooned Valtteri and broke his and Valtteri's car. Qatar 23, he couldn't carry on in the conditions. Mexico 23, his fuel pump failed right at the end. And finally, Miami 24, contact with Magnussen. It's not all been him. The car has had its fair share of reliability issues, granted. But also these numbers neglect to inform of all the incidents he's had in practice and in qualifying. Japan FP1 this year, Zandvoort quali last year, and even last year's Singapore race where he hit the wall, caused a safety car, but got away with it with a front wing swap. Logan's time in F1 has been messy, but I tell you what won't be messy. Your website, if you build it with today's video sponsor, Squarespace. What a segue. That's right, Squarespace have been long-term supporters of this channel, and I'm here to tell you all about them. I've been supporting them. I've been using Squarespace for many a year, long predating this YouTube channel. Recently, they introduced Squarespace Blueprint, yet another tool to make it an absolute doddle to build your very own beautiful online home, be that a store, be that a blog, whatever the purpose, whatever the need, whatever the desire, Squarespace is there to help. It's completely free to try. It's only when you want to publish your finished website live to the world that you have to pay anything, and when that time inevitably comes around, head to squarespace.com/TOMMO'S to get 10% off your very first website or domain. As easy as it is to use Squarespace, it's also been very easy to be critical of Logan since he joined the sport in 2023. But for me, I've always held on to 2 things mainly. Okay, first of all, his junior career. He was a multiple-time karting world champion, went toe-to-toe with Piastri and Porsche in F3, only just coming up short of the title, and was Rookie of the Year on his debut in F2 in 22. Did he deserve his Williams seat purely on merit? No. I never claim that fact. Okay, there's plenty of other drivers who beat him in that F2 season and had done more to showcase they were F1 ready. But when you looked at his portfolio, his career up to that point, he'd still done a pretty impressive job. It's easy to make sweeping generalised judgments on drivers, especially those who are young and inexperienced, right? You know, you're only as good as your last race, but I try and give benefit of doubt where I can. Because on top of that, there is the actual real hidden pace that Logan has actually shown. And I say hidden because it's very easy to miss, because it's not the bigger lights, the big numbers that pop up in qualifying, right? Because, well, unfortunately, the reality is when those big opportunities come to lay those big lap times, especially in qualifying, more often than not, Logan lets himself down. However, there has been so many periods where Logan has kept consistent speed relative to Alex, a driver that's held in very high esteem by most people. I mean, look at this weekend in Miami, for example, okay, courtesy of F1 Tempo with the numbers, shout out once again. After their first pit stops, Logan and Alex were both on the hard tyre. On lap 14, Alex was 2.3 seconds ahead of Logan. By lap 22, just before the VSC, the gap was down to 1.7. They were very much matching each other, blow for blow. Logan slightly chipping away at Alex's advantage up until that point. Yes, it's only 8 laps, okay, and there's so much nuance, but that is indicative of a driver who can keep it clean and can stay pace-wise, race pace-wise. Sunday is when the points are won and lost, pretty close to Alex. I think it's this kind of data that resulted in Logan keeping his seat at the end of 2023. Plus the fact he's American, okay, of course, right? That goes down well with the overlords at Dorilton, I'm sure. But the thing is, even with all that, he still ended up in the wall. That's kind of the problem. Like, yes, okay, K-Mag was seen to be wholly to blame. I think Logan could and should have done more as well. I think it's a racing incident. I don't agree with the ruling. I think self-preservation, man, in that moment, like, it's just not good enough. K-Mag's been driving wild as of late, and you can certainly make a very compelling argument that he doesn't deserve to be in F1 anymore right now. We know Hulkenberg's leaving Haas. I think maybe Behrman and someone else. I'm not sure if K-Mag's that guy, but that's a conversation for another day. You know what they say about luck, right? It's a result of preparation meeting opportunity, and I think Lando banked some luck he's not had for a while now, right? To get that win in Miami, the safety car came out at the right moment. He saw the opportunity, he was prepared to take it, and comfortably won the race in the end. Logan, on the other hand, can be seen as, he's been on his fair share of bad luck, receiving end of some bad luck, but does it work both ways? Perhaps he's not as prepared as he should be. Perhaps his pace isn't there to capitalise when those opportunities present themselves, because everyone gets opportunities. Alex has taken many an opportunity in a Williams, hence why, particularly last year, he's not had a great start to this season, granted, but last year he was held in such high regard because whenever those opportunities presented themselves, he was almost always there to capitalise. Logan never is. Yes, Logan outqualified Alex for the first time in 27 attempts this weekend in Miami, but it's only because Alex bottled his lap. Alex was last, Logan was 19th. Look, perhaps if Williams were a fully fledged junior team, they could take more of a chance on Logan going forward. AlphaTauri took a chance on Yuki Tsunoda. Red Bull could afford to give him that seat and let him be a bit rubbish at the start and a bit crash happy and a bit too emotional. Now, he's in his 4th year, Yuki. I'm saying, I think he's one of the most informed drivers in Formula 1 right now, for sure. But the fact is, Williams aren't. They couldn't be further from Faenza in terms of their financial support and, what they need from their drivers. Valsam and Fryer made some difficult changes and decisions over the winter break in the chase of, short-term pain, long-term gain, and it's resulted in some pretty embarrassing moments for him. You can't run a second car in Australia because you ain't got a spare chassis. And look, they weren't the only team without a spare chassis, but at the end of the day, what happened. You play that game and they got burnt. But if Williams can lay the groundwork now, all right, even though the performances might wane a bit, and then fly 26 onwards, right, if they can get everything, all their ducks in a row now, they're not going to mind. But unfortunately, Logan's nearly man energy, that's what I think of him as. This potential is there. It's so frustrating. And he just never, ever hooks it all up in a weekend. This is why the Andrea Kimi Antonelli rumours just don't really sit well with me, right? Because, if you haven't seen, special dispensation has been received in the FIA regarding Andrea Kimi Antonelli, right? Someone wants him in a seat before he turns 18. He's already got the super license points. They could just wait until August till he turns 18, but someone's interested in getting him early. It's not Mercedes, because they're not whacking out Lewis mid-season. That's never happening. It must be Williams. That doesn't mean he is definitely who they're going for, but it does mean that he's 100% an option that they are considering mid-season. But then if Williams are to replace Sargeant mid-season, well, all the drivers on the grid who they've been linked to, I don't see them leaving their teams early as well. Say an Ocon or a Bottas, right? They're not going to leave Alpine or Sauber respectively mid-season to go to Williams mid-season. Then there's all right, what about Drugovich or Lawson or Vesti maybe? They're juniors who have done bits and are sitting on the sidelines, but I don't see any of them names really shining out to me. Which then makes me think, okay, maybe it is actually Antonelli. If it's a mid-season swap, I don't see anyone else realistically. And sorry, Mick Schumacher fans, but there's no way. I'm sorry. He had his time in F1. He made too many mistakes. That's not what Williams need right now. Because then Mercedes can make a decision on, well, maybe Verstappen seems like a long shot, or Sainz. Bottas could, you know, maybe stay at Sauber if Sainz doesn't go there. And I think it makes sense for Mercedes, like from Toto's point of view, to stick, you know, Antonelli in the Williams, I think is the ideal situation. Give Sainz a run next to George. I literally talked about that in my last video, right? Maybe Sainz outclasses George, and actually Toto's like, sorry George mate, but you've not done enough, and actually it's Antonelli Sainz long term. Who knows? What I do know is that Antonelli can't be the right choice for Williams, like surely, right? Everything I've said about, you know, their precarious financial position, the fact that they're building up, the fact they've got a tricky car as well, which I think is catching out Logan. Is that the right shout for Antonelli, who's still 17 and has been a bit spinny, crash happy in F2, hasn't set that alight immediately? Just don't see how this makes any sense for Williams unless there is some serious financial compensation in the form of, I don't know, cheaper engines or whatever from Mercedes, from Toto. Here's what James Vowles said himself regarding the Antonelli rumours.
There was a rumour going around he'll be in the car for Imola. He won't be in the car for Imola. What we're doing at the moment is evaluating drivers for 26 and 25. When you go through a regulation change, you really don't want to be changing drivers in 26, so you're looking for the right pairing for that period of time. And there's no doubt he's got huge skill to him, but he was in a Formula 4 car 20 months ago. That's where he is. It's a very different proposition to most. We've been talking to 4 or 5 drivers at the moment for that period of time, and I'm quite happy to sit back a little bit and wait. I mean, more so than...
Very interesting that he specified not for Imola, but not never either. It's quite clear from this interview that Logan Sargeant's back is against the wall. Absolutely. I just feel like if Williams want to be taken seriously moving forward, then them functioning as Mercedes junior team isn't that. Look, for me, the most suitable driver for Williams to replace Logan Sargeant would be Valtteri Bottas, but that would not happen before the end of the season. He started his career at that team, incredibly impressive at Williams at the start, hence why he got the Mercedes seat over Pascal Wehrlein. I wasn't particularly impressed with Valtteri, especially in the first year. Second year, getting better, seemed to get on top of that car and more on top of Zhou Guanyu, and this year he's been pretty consistently quicker than Zhou. You know, he's got the experience, he's a steady pair of hands, he's worked with James Vowles in the past before, so James knows what he's about. To bring this team forwards, Albon Bottas would be a great lineup, a great reliable, yeah, they're not crash happy drivers, they're not known as being crash happy, are they? Sure, there's other options, like Ocon would be cool, but Alpine seem to be making steps forward, they seem to be quicker than Sauber right now, so maybe he stays. Tsunoda would be exciting, but I think actually for Williams, maybe the reliability of Bottas is probably worth more than that. Slight bit more speed I think Yuki has over Valtteri. Zhou, look, I've already made the argument as to why commercially he makes so much sense for Audi, but realistically, like, come on, Bottas has been slapping him up this season so far. Look, I don't think dropping Sargeant mid-season is a bad choice, as long as the replacement is a serious and a appropriate one. And do I think that's Kimi Antonelli? I don't think Andrea Kimi Antonelli, I don't think a 17-year-old, doesn't matter who it is, this is nothing personal against him at all, but like, that can't be the right choice for Williams, not a team in their position. No, like, alright, fine, if it was a Toro Rosso and he was part of the Red Bull Academy, give it a go, chuck him in the racing balls, do it, right? But not Williams. Because I think the final chapter of the story and the final piece of the puzzle is perhaps someone actually behind the scenes, perhaps a certain technical mind who's just become available. Yes, of course. Adrian Newey is leaving Red Bull after 18 years of service. He's been in F1 since the late to mid 80s, and he did spend time at Williams. 28 years ago, at the end of 1996, was when he left. He is the mind behind the FW14, probably the most iconic F1 car of all time, certainly up there. FW18 as well, World Championship winning cars. Both of them. Does a reunion with Williams to help rebuild that team and get that team back to where it once was. Is that a more compelling offer to Adrian than Ferrari? Obviously, Ferrari with Hamilton, he's always wanted to work with Hamilton, but would he move to Maranello? Would he be happy with coming up with some kind of Frankenstein base in the UK to work with? Is that best for Ferrari, realistically? Like, they seem to be on a good path right now with the technical leadership they have. I'm not so sure, actually, about that. The more I think about it, the more I think actually Williams could be the place Newey ends up. Like, he's not financially motivated anymore. He's got all the cash he needs, Adrian. Maybe that's the more exciting project for him. What would you do if you were in charge of Williams right now? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and everything I do. Much appreciated. My name's Tomo. Thanks again. Have a good one.